excited to be a part of Survive and Thrive this year, and then the 2.0 round as well. I just wanted to start off really just acknowledge, we've all been through, I'd say, a lot over the past year and a half, and that would be an understatement. So the fact that you all are still here today, still standing, still grinding it out is just a testament to your drive and your commitment to your work and what you do. So, much applause to each one of you and your efforts, and so excited to have you all as part of the Survive and Thrive program this time around. So, like Aaron mentioned, this is the second round of the Financial Foundation's presentations. I know last week they did a great job of going through profit and loss, balance sheet, knowing your numbers. I took enough accounting classes in college to know that I did not want to be an accountant, so more power to those guys that love and live that stuff out each and every single day. So really excited to dive into this. I will say my style is very much more conversational. I'm not big into presenting, so my hope is as you have questions throughout here, as you want to talk about certain things as we go through that, just interrupt me. So if you raise your hand as we're going through this presentation, the way my screen is formatted, I actually can't see you. So feel free just to jump in, unmute yourself, and interrupt, and let's have a conversation. So with that, really what we're going to be talking about today is knowing your numbers. And not only just knowing your numbers, what they actually mean. And then, of course, how can we take this and apply this to our business each and every day? Real quick, what we're going to cover. So we're going to talk about what all of us as entrepreneurs face, specifically when it comes to numbers and structure of our business. That we're going to talk about a common math problem that most of us probably know and what's wrong with that math problem today. We're going to talk about fixing the unknown and changing the way cash flows through your business. And lastly, how can we turn all this information into action, and what can we actually do this week and next to just start building better foundations inside of our business? Real quick before we get started, who am I? So I'm a recovering hedge fund analyst. So I say that all jokingly, but it was a different lifestyle for sure. I'm, of course, a proud father and a husband. These are my two kids and my wife up here on the screen. My daughter's going into kindergarten this year. I'm not ready for that stage of life, but here we are anyways. I own 3 different businesses. The one that takes 80% of my time is Atmos Planning, where we're providing personal CFO services for business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate investors. I'm a heavy real estate investor myself. And then we work inside of the businesses I own. We actually are working behind the scenes to hopefully impact policy changes throughout the business community, the way our tax dollars are spent, to put more emphasis and focus on, the heart and soul of our cities, which is people like you. So with that, we're going to dive right in. So one of the challenges we all face through there, and we'll get started. And the way I want to go about this is I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And what I'm going to ask is if each one of you could go through, if we could go through quickly, and you just give your name, your company, why you started it. So for me, for example, Robert Fehlen, Atmos Planning, and I started this to build a legacy and create an impact on the people around me in our community. So it's all right. I'm just going to go by order of who I see on my screen first. So Aletta, would you be able to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Alita, and my business is Roan River Wellness Clinic, and I'm a massage therapist, and I just like helping people. I like seeing them get off the table and feeling better and being able to move and have just a little bit better quality of life.
Thank you. Thank you. Mary?
Hi, Mary Berger, Rocky Mountain Delights, originally from Florida, moved up here 4.5 years ago with my husband, trying to find a retirement type of business where we could run on our own and not work for anyone else and have more leisure time for hiking with the dogs. So we wholesale frozen fruit bars, as well as popcorn, snacks, breads, pretzels, to recreation centers, tourist attractions, retail stores, mostly grocery stores, the natural grocery stores, that kind of thing.
Excellent. Thank you, Mary. Eric?
Yes, my name is Eric B. Hicks. I'm with 719 to the 303 Promotions. And what we do, we bring entertainment to the city and different events. Like, for example, we have an event on Saturday And we're doing the pain and trap, which is similar to the pain and twist, but it's more urban trap music. But this one here is R&B music and old school music on Saturday.
Excellent. Thank you. I apologize if I butcher the name. Alexandre? Is that close? Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry
There we
about
go.
that. There you go.
Perfect.
You said it right. It was a fight in between Andre and Alex. So they got into a position that they merged, and I got both names at the same time.
Perfect.
So name is Alex, and been with the culinary for 30 something years, very successful in Boston, had served a lot of celebrities. And I moved to Colorado to find a paradise and figured out that we were missing a bunch of good stuff here in Colorado Springs. So 2 years ago, we opened up Taste of Brazil.
Very good. Heather? Oh, now that I can go to Caleb. How about we do Caleb? Because it looks like you just took a bite there.
No, sorry about that. I just I was getting in here a little bit late. I've been about 20 minutes behind all day. I caught up to 5 minutes behind, but I just came back from running a driving test there, so I apologize for that.
Oh, no worries.
So my name's Caleb Horn. I'm the owner of National Driver Training Colorado Springs. Been a driving instructor for about 13 years. Just something I kind of fell into, and something else fell through, and it seemed like it'd be fun. I like driving. I like teaching. And then a little over 4 years ago, the guy I was working for offered for me to buy the place from him. So I've been working through that. Just finally last week made the last payment on the purchase loan. So that's nice to be done with that. We do driving lessons. We do a lot of testing, especially right now because the DMV is not offering that service anywhere. So it's all on driving school. So we've been doing that a lot. We do some classes. We tend to have a lot of students that other places don't. Most schools focus just on teenagers. We teach a lot of adults. I think my oldest student was 89. We do have a lot of students who have special needs and stuff. So it's fun working with people when, like their family and friends have told them this is something that they can't ever be able to do, and we're able to help them through that. So it's definitely been good doing that and just kind of investing in the community and everything. We do sometimes get annoyed with or sometimes not we get annoyed, but we annoy the parents of 16-year-olds because we don't drop everything to rush them in at the last minute because they didn't pay attention. But we're trying to help everyone else out there. But it's been good. It's been a fun ride, and we enjoy doing it.
All right. No, thank you, Caleb. All right, Heather, let's go back to you now.
Hi, everybody. Heather McBroom with Precision Services. I offer a one-stop business shop, if you will. We provide services ranging from business registration, commercial insurance, which is what most people know me for, bookkeeping, payroll, legal protection for your business, marketing, and virtual assistant services. So we are truly a one-stop shop. We also provide connections to local resources in the community. I'm very active in the community, so a lot of those are direct connections to people that you may need to help you with your business. And I started this business, this craziness, because as an insurance agent, I had so many clients that didn't make it to year 2 or 3 because they just didn't understand how to work in their businesses and work on their businesses. And they couldn't find one place to go to get help. It was several places, and it just didn't work out for them. So we decided to create this one-stop shop and hopefully be the first of something like this in nationwide.
Perfect. Thank you. And what we'll do for the rest of them, if you don't mind just sharing just your name, just the name of the business, and kind of why you started. I'd love to learn more and more, but just to make sure we stay on track of time. So I've got Cherie. Is that how you pronounce it? Next.
It's actually Sheree.
Sheree. All right.
Yes. My name is Sheree. I'm the founder of We Assist. I started We Assist as a military spouse needing to find income that could go somewhere with me. And then it turned into an agency helping others find remote jobs like me.
Perfect. Thank you. Terry.
Hi, guys. My name is Terry Booterbaugh. I'm the owner of Old School Boxing Gym. I teach pros, amateurs, and folks doing it for self-defense and to get fitness for boxing. I started it because I love boxing, and, well, it just so happened to turn out that I fell into what I love.
Very good. Thank you. Evelyn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Evelyn Sullivan. My business is Evelyn Sullivan Mediation. I'm an attorney, and I started this business because mediation is always better than litigation. No judge will ever have the time to know the situation better than you and the opposing party. And so that's why I prefer to do that type of work.
Perfect. Lawrence. Oh, Lawrence, you're on mute.
Hi, my name is Lawrence Wagner. I with Spark Mindset. Spark Mindset is preparing families in historically disadvantaged communities for cybersecurity careers. And the reason I started this is because I was one of those kids. And so I know that people in those communities lack the opportunity and access to careers like cybersecurity.
Very good. And I'm probably going to mess this up again, but is it Irini?
Yeah, Irini.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I did get it
Hi.
right. Thank you.
You did it. I help run embroidered expressions with my aunt. I actually got into it because my aunt was an employee, and in 2008, the recession was happening, and the owner was not really interested in the business anymore and didn't think that they could make a profit off of it. So we decided to, take it over together and kind of work on that. So, yeah.
Perfect. Elise?
Yes, I'm Elise Cadwell and just have been doing life coaching and am a counselor, and I'm expanding my business into counseling and consulting too. And I'm wanting to do some equine assisted therapies. And I recently set up an LLC called Cadellis Integrative Therapies.
Very good. Thank you. Singh. Oh, you're on mute, Singh. I think that's the phrase of 2020 and 2021 is you're on mute. Singh, we're not able to hear you. Are you able to unmute? There we go.
Can you hear me? Yeah, my name is Sang Mi. Yeah, I am the owner of Chongtong Korean restaurant located in the South Colorado Springs. My restaurant operating from 2004, almost 17 years old. 17 years. My restaurant provides Korean food. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Singh. Carlos?
Dollars, MDO, dollars, 26 years in the military, retired to open this office. So it was sort of a last minute. I've been preparing for it for a long time, but I dropped the retirement, went internship, opened office, and here I am. I'm doing this one, so I can provide for my family, but two, so that I can have the flexibility to be more effective in the community, working with students and adults in any capacity that I can. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so I think we got everyone that's on camera right now. In the interest of time, we're going to keep moving forward if that's okay. So two reasons for that. I wanted to get to know the audience a little bit better, what your names are, what you're all about, right? So what gets you up out of bed every single morning, why you started your business. The other side of this is we have 20 people on this call. Not a single one said, I started my business because I wanted to build better balance sheets. I wanted to build a profit and loss statement. I wanted to understand my numbers and I wanted to make projections. No, it was, hey, we have a passion, we have an excitement about what we did. We fell in love with boxing. There was that opportunity, right? We wanted to find a paradise here in Colorado. We wanted to build a lifestyle business in retirement. It wasn't, I want to know my numbers. I want to keep track of all my accounting. So when the IRS knocks on the door, we've got that all straight, right? So that was the other part of this. And that's so true. I ask this to audiences and conversations all the time. No one has ever said, unless they're an accountant, that I want to understand my numbers better. So that's what we see as one of the greatest challenges as an entrepreneur is there's so many hats that you all understand that you wear. and when it comes to finances and how important cash coming in and staying inside your business is. One specific example we like to use, and this was research done by the SBA, and it's the fact that there are 32.2 million small businesses out there today. 23 million of them aren't properly structured when it comes to even just their LLC, their corporation, etc. The list goes on. So a large, vast percentage of us struggle with that because we didn't get into business to be the attorney, right? To file the documents with the state. We didn't get into that to set up accounting and our sheets and everything that we need to track, right? We got into it because of a passion and excitement and care and love for what that we did. So coming out, and the other part of it is the fact that there's so much advice out there. We all know the YouTube gurus that we can watch, the podcasts, the books, friends and family all have an opinion on what you should do with your business and your wealth. And so where do we turn to, right, to actually get advice and take actionable steps? So let's jump into what's the common math problem. So how many of you have heard before revenue minus expenses equals profit, or revenue minus expenses equals NOI, or net operating income, right? That's most of what's taught out there today. So we actually disagree with this. And some people may have heard of this philosophy before, but we believe revenue minus profit should equal your expenses. Why is that? Well, we believe that you should be driving your business and understand your business to the point that you can take your profit first. There's a book you've probably heard out there before, Profit First, but taking and paying yourself prior to paying the expenses. So that's where you truly sit inside the driver's seat of your business versus most of us, I would say, as entrepreneurs, when we're starting out, we check the financial health of our business by looking each and every day at our bank account. We'll pull that up. We're constantly checking where's revenue at, inside there. Do I have enough money to pay my expenses at the end of the month? And that's how we check the health of our business. And then when it comes to the end of the month and we have our mortgage payment that we got to pay, groceries we got to put on our table at home, we kind of look at, all right, here's how much I need to pay myself in order to go on another month inside of our household. So we write ourselves a check for that amount, and we're left with really what's the scraps of our business, right? We let our business take the rest of the finances. Now, as I'm going through that, there's people probably here saying, we're struggling just, week by week, month by month, making sure that we can stay in business, right? This idea that I could start to pay myself before anything else is a really difficult concept to grasp, or a really difficult one really to implement at this time. And I'm going to challenge you to say that I've never seen anyone as scrappy as entrepreneurs. No one can make a dollar stretch like entrepreneurs can. So if you made $1,000 in revenue in your business this month and you have $1,000 to work with, you're going to find a way to make that $1,000 work. If you turn around at the beginning of the month and pay yourself $100 and leave yourself with $900, you're going to find a way to make that $900 work. But now you've turned your business into a profit generating machine versus a cash eating machine. So and one thing I challenge is, again, we're talking about laying the right financial foundations inside of your business. And I was talking to an entrepreneur last year. He did $2 million in 2020 gross revenue. What he paid himself was the same amount of money 5 years ago when he had a $100,000 revenue business. But on top of that, now he has the stress. He's got the team. He's got more customers. He's got more clients from a $2 million business. And he's still his family is reaping the benefit of having the same size business he had 5 years ago. So it's laying these foundations, starting to get in front of it and understand here's how I can start to turn this business into a profit to create the family, the lifestyle, the impact that I want to create. And going back to driving your business. So the challenge with all that, right, is the unknown that we face. So, some people in the crowd right now may be saying, hey, this sounds great. Like, that sounds good. I don't know if I can do this in my business for, fill in the blank, right? I don't know if I can do this because fill in the blank. And what it comes down to is understanding not only where we are today and our numbers, so your profit and loss, your balance sheet, it's also understanding where we're going. And a lot of times I'll say business owners, when they come up with an idea for a business, they do a great job of projecting, here's what I think I could do. And then they start the business, and then those numbers go in the wastebasket. And we kind of we check the health of our business by the bank account balance. So we got to understand and know not only what these numbers are, but what they're telling us. So really the question is, all right, so where do we actually start in all of this? So we'll walk through each of these phases and touch on any of them. But you always have to start with accuracy. You've got to start to understand, what are your numbers today? Are the numbers right? We got to translate into that understanding. What are these numbers actually telling us? What do they mean? What does this tell me about the health of my business? Then we actually have to plan. What do we have to change to get the results that we want, so that we're not just having to grind for years and years in the future? What do we need to plan to change to get results? And then how do we translate that plan into systems and actions that we can actually take and work out? What do we actually need to do this week, this month, this quarter, this year, to start to get closer to each one of those goals? So let's talk about accuracy real quick. So they did an amazing job last week of going through profit and loss statements, balance sheets. Again, more power to the accountants that live and breathe and love that stuff. It's so important in business, but I understand it's not the most thrilling and exciting thing. So for those of you that mentioned, hey, I've got another guy that's doing that for me, we pay a company to do that. Awesome. Like, that's where each and every business owner should be, or strive to go, is get that off your plate as soon as you can. So those resources, the QuickBooks Online, right? It's fairly intuitive. We talked a little bit about that last week. There's Wave, which is a free software that can typically handle most of your needs. There's actually services out there. There's bookkeepers out there that'll coach for, maybe it's $50 a month or $100 a month, where they'll come into your company, just help you set all those accounts up in QuickBooks, and then peer over your shoulder to make sure you're doing it right month by month or quarter by quarter, so you can sleep at night a little bit better knowing that you're doing it right and taking the right action when you go to file your taxes right at the end of the year and the quarter. And then, of course, the ultimate goal, I believe, of any business owner should be to have a full service bookkeeper. So, just like, go to a company like those guys that were here last week and get that off your plate, so you can do more of what you love and less of what you shouldn't be doing. So moving on, and we'll spend a little bit more time here, is understanding. So let's say now we've got our balance sheet, now we've got our profit and loss statement in order. We start to know, all right, here's our numbers today. What are those numbers actually telling us? So let's, I'd encourage you to take some notes. We can probably make this presentation available after as well. But now that you've gone through the exercise of building out a profit loss or a balance sheet, or you got that from your accountant, I would encourage you to write these things down. So we're going to start with top line revenue. This is, we're going to make the assumption you've been in business for a year. So look out over the last year. What was top line revenue? Then we're going to write down cost of goods sold. So this is anything, if you own a restaurant, this is the cost of your produce, anything else that goes into the making of the meals. If you have a coffee shop, this is the cost of the roasting of the beans, everything that goes into what does it take to actually hand a customer a cup of coffee. Once we do that, we take top line revenue minus cost of goods sold. That's what we actually view as real revenue. So after, the cost of doing business is the cost of doing business, right? When we're making a product or selling a service. So what's your actual real revenue? And then from there, look over the past year. What did you actually pay yourself? What do we profit? This won't be on your financial statement, but figure out what you paid in taxes last year as well. And then operating expenses. And there's a lot of intention behind putting profit and owner's pay at the top there. Again, getting back in the mentality of we're going to pay ourselves and run our business versus it running us. So let's take an example. So there's a company, let's say they did $100,000 last year, to keep math simple. $10,000 cost of goods sold. They actually have real revenue of $90,000. This is what they paid them. This is what they paid in taxes. This is what they have in operating expenses. So I'd encourage you to go through this exact same exercise with your business, with whatever financials you have. Maybe you've been in business for a quarter, right? Maybe it's a year, maybe it's 10 years. The max I'd look back is just the past year. What did you do? Now let's translate that into how do we actually compare versus the industry versus where we actually want to go and where do we get to. So we look at real revenue, because we're not really concerned about top line revenue and cost of goods sold at this point. We got to understand, like, bottom line, what's coming into our each month, each year. And then we look at, all right, here's how much we paid ourselves. So that's 25%. This business owner is doing great. Like, paid themselves 25%. Taxes were about 5% overall of real revenue. And then you have operating expenses of close to 70%. So now this helps start to translate into, all right, now I can have a better understanding of, all right, I've paid myself 25% of real revenue. My business is doing good. I can start to see, all right, here's what's going to be eaten up by taxes and my operating expenses. And I'll say in every single business, what goes into operating expenses, there's so many lines that can fall behind that. But how can we simplify it and just look at the health of our business? And then what we encourage people to do is, well, what do you want those numbers to be, right? That's what it is today, but where do you want to go? Like, do you want profit and owner's pay to be 25%? You want that to be 30, 40, 50%? Your taxes, your operating expense. Where do you actually want to go? So the next step is writing down the target. So I'd say typically for the businesses that we work with that are under $250,000 in revenue each year, these are some of the targets that we at least set for ourselves initially. So trying to get to 50% of profit and owner's pay, 15% taxes, 35% expenses. And you may be saying, hey, I'm a restaurant owner. I'm on razor thin margins, right? In most cases, that's great. That all those costs that go into actually producing a meal for a client or a customer, that goes up into your cost of goods sold. So really, we're just trying to look at bottom line real revenue at the bottom, what's left for paying our rent, for paying our employees, for paying our taxes, for paying ourselves. Before we move on, any questions or thoughts about this so far?
So if we have a business that does not sell items, like mine is a service, it's my employees driving with someone or teaching a class, would basically all of my stuff fall then under the real revenue since I don't really have any goods to sell?
Yeah, so in many cases, there's going to be a lot of business that flows straight into real revenue. But do you have, if you're training to drive, do you have to pay and fill up the car with gas or anything like that? Are there certain things like that where, hey, every student is going to cost us X amount in these expenses?
Okay, no, that makes sense. I just wasn't sure how to divide that out because, yeah, we do have cars, and, occasionally print a little bit of materials and that kind of stuff. So, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Very good question. Very good question.
So, would it be good to say cost of services sold then?
Absolutely. Yep. You could change the language, cost of services sold, if there's, and remind me what your business is again. Is it, you said life coaching?
Counseling and coaching.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So in that case, you may not have a cost of service sold per se, because say if you rent an office, like that's going to fall into operating expenses. Now, if you were saying, hey, every single time I meet with a client, I'm going to buy them a coffee and a lunch, well, then maybe that goes into cost of service.
In my industry, I'm required to do regular CEUs and certifications. Would that all be considered cost of services provided?
So that's going to be in your operating expenses. It's just what do you have to really operate your business? So you're going to have those licenses, those CEU credits, the education year over year, and that's just going to be an expense to keep your business running. It's not going to be, hey, in order to serve this one individual client, that this is a cost that's really just associated with this one client. It's a cost that's associated with all your clients.
Okay, that's helpful.
Great question. Anyone else?
So sorry to butt in again, just to make sure I get it. So the cost of goods are the things that are dependent upon the number of customers we have. So for me, for example, it'd be putting gas in the car, whereas the operating expense would be owning the car itself, because that's essential to having the business. And whether or not I have, 10 people in it a day or 1 people in a day, I still have that.
Exactly right. Okay. Perfect.
Thank you. That makes so much more sense.
There you go.
Robert.
Yes.
Does your company provide services to company like mine?
So we work with businesses that are startups to our top business will do 18 million in revenue this year and kind of everywhere in between.
Okay, how do I gather your information to reach out to you?
For sure. Aaron, would you be able to get the information?
Absolutely. I'll attach it all when I send out the video.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Anything else before we move on?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, looking at the screen, we should pay ourselves first and then start taking out the taxes and the operating expenses. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly it. And that's challenging to transition to, I would say, in the beginning, because a lot of us when we're starting up, it's just we're trying to scrape to get by. And sometimes, operating expenses may be higher than real revenue at this point. Maybe our business is eating up cash flow, right? So it becomes difficult to transition. But it goes back to we're all pretty scrappy. Like we can stretch a dollar. So what we give ourselves to spend, we're going to spend it as entrepreneurs. So it's how do we start to strategically pull money aside out of the business for safekeeping, away from our own selves into our family and our household and leave ourselves with here's the budget that I have to work with. And that takes time. So
Have a good day. You can. Yes,
no,
because I've been paying myself. Well, thank you. You too. I haven't been paying myself first because I have employees and I make sure employees got paid first before I even touched anything. Because if I didn't have them, I'd be sunk.
absolutely.
Same here. Same here.
So, yeah, I guess that's the hardest part for me right now is trying to figure out how much to allocate for myself to make sure, because I've just been, when I need something, I take it, but I don't give myself a regular paycheck just because I'm trying to make sure everything else gets paid first. So I actually have a business and have work to go to.
Absolutely. No, and you brought up exactly where we all start and where we're I'd say probably the majority of us are at of like, and I'm a firm believer, pay your people well, pay them first, in that sense. I would forego my paycheck before I'd ever have somebody work for me and not pay them. And I'm sure everyone else is of the same mindset there. But then it's, what would have to change inside of your business to start actually taking profit home? Because I'm all for helping people out and helping people grow and get what they want for themselves in life. But I'm not in the business of just employing people for free for myself either as well. At some point, I've got to take care of my family and grow the impact that I want to grow. So you brought up the perfect point. And the goal of this is not to change on a dime where now you're writing yourself a big check each and every single month. That's just not going to be possible, right? But could we start the habit of when money comes in, paying yourself $100 first, and then saying this is the budget that I work with, and then what that encourages you to do and say, all right, are all these expenses that I'm paying for really necessary? Because now I only have this much to work with, so I'm going to make it work inside of that budget. But great question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to try to figure it out. Thank you.
For sure. And we'll touch on this in just a few moments of tactically how to start to make that transition and take it slow. Right. So
okay, that's what I need.
Perfect.
A quick question on paying yourself versus paying down debt. My philosophy is always, this is Michael with Songbird and the Orchid. My philosophy is always pay off the debt that I incurred to start the business first. And then once I'm out of debt, then I can pay myself. So that's my trade-off I've always considered. But of course, I'm still paying off the debt in year 7. So what's your philosophy on debt versus paying yourself and keeping debt writing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my philosophy is that a baseline, every entrepreneur should be paying themselves in some form or capacity. Maybe not month 1, maybe not month 3, but once you really start to get into it. And what I'm not trying to say, hey, we need to start writing our check for $5,000 every single month because we have all these other things we have to pay for. It's how do we start to form habits? Because that's what will happen is we'll focus, we'll keep all the money inside the business, we'll keep reinvesting, and then we're going to wake up 8, 9, 10 years later with a big business and still all the expenses that are getting soaked up by what we could have been taking for profit ourselves. So, if you look back over the past 7 or 8 years have you been able to pay yourself necessarily? And people have situations. I know we work with some people. It's difficult to talk them through because maybe they have a military pension that they retire from the military and they're growing a business and they're like, hey, I can live off of this over here, and I can be a little lax in how I spend my money inside my business. I can put it towards debt and hiring people. And again, what happens is you'll wake up 5 years later, still following that same process, and now just have a bigger business to manage and more stress and more time that comes along with this. So I'm a big believer in strategically paying down debt. Absolutely. Like, debt is just one of those things inside your business that can keep you up at night when markets turn, when the economy turns, right? That's lenders still for some reason want to get paid. so the sooner we can get that off, like, I'm all about peace of mind. But at the same time, I'm also being about starting to form the right habits. So again, we don't fast forward 10 years and we've got the same habits that we've been creating all along. Because I've seen it time to time. There's an organization here in town as well. They're amazing. She's got a staff of 6 to 7 people that do great work in the business 5 or 6 years, hasn't really paid herself a dime or maybe a couple $100 a month because she's been able to outsource well. But at some point it's like, hey, do I need to buckle down and start to pick up and get my hands dirty in the work a little bit so that I can actually start to take something home as well?
Yeah.
Great
Point well
question.
taken. I appreciate that, because it is the habit. Because I mean, not taking a paycheck for my first 2 or 3 years in business was part of my business plan. I knew it was coming. But at year 7, that's where I'm scratching my head. So I think your point's real well taken. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. All right. Anybody else before we move on? All right, we'll jump on to the next. So really after that, right, it's what do we actually take this information? What do we actually do with it? So there's a couple resources. This is more specific around, again, in order for us to know what we're going to pay ourselves, right? If we're going to pay ourselves first, right, we have to know our margins. We have to know our numbers, where we are today. So that's part of that exercise, is looking at where our percentage, where are we really allocating our money, right? And I want it to be a choice for each one of you. I don't want it to be, here's what I've paid in my bills, that's the percentage it has to be. It's more, here's how much I'm going to allocate from my revenue for each one of these categories, so I start to take control. In order to do that, though, I also got to know what's my revenue next month, my expenses next month, the next quarter, the next year, where are we actually going to grow? So there's two really good tools. Excel, there's plenty of templates out there. It's fairly intuitive to use at a basic level. One of my favorite tools and resources for more projections and cash flow management is Live Plan. So it's a $20 a month service, I believe, for most folks, and I can pull up an example of what it looks like. So we use this internally for a lot of the businesses. So for example, this is a coffee shop that we work with, and we're starting to build these projections out. So we're starting to look at, all right, where's revenue today? And we can break out, here's all the different products or services. Maybe you do counseling services, right? You could say, here's the 3 different packages the ways we work with people. And you can use products, you can use subscriptions, you can start to visualize what your revenue is. And then you can start in direct costs. You can say, here's my cost of goods sold. Here's what I'm starting to look at. And so if every single cup of coffee, it takes 20% in my cost of goods sold, I can have that formula in here. So as I increase my revenue, I'm correctly projecting those costs as well. You can start to add in, payroll, other expenses, rent. And then it can even, if you have your balance sheet, you can put that information in here and it can project out, what's your cash on hand, what's going to be the value of your company over time. Like, what is your balance sheet going to look like a year from now if you follow your projections? And then you can start to say, all right, based on my industry, you can pick what industry you're in, and you can start to see how does my margin compare to everybody else? How's my monthly revenue per employee? How does that compare? And again, I'm not for just comparing to everyone randomly in the industry, but it starts to give you a benchmark to say, all right, am I on track? And then the other cool part, you sync it up with your QuickBooks Online if you use that, and it's got a couple other programs I could sync with and start to look at, all right, I forecasted this, what was my revenue? I forecasted my expenses, what were my actual expenses? And it's just an easier way to start to track, what are we actually doing? Are we staying on track? Are we planning correctly, or what do we need to adjust? I'd say last but not least is actually translating those plans into actions and systems. Nothing nothing matters, right? The concepts here we talked about, it doesn't matter if we don't do anything with it. So to the point of like, how do I start to pay myself first? Again, it goes back to, we have to understand our numbers today. What are they telling us? Where are our numbers going to be? Starting to plan and project. And then how do we actually change the way cash flows through our business? So I'd say most people have it set up where we have a business checking account. Maybe we have a business savings account as well. But the way I'd encourage you to start to implement the system in here is you have a revenue account. So take the checking account you already have. That's going to be your revenue account. So any money that comes in, that's where it's going to go first. And then what I typically recommend is twice a month, I'd sit and look at what's in your revenue account and say, all right, I'm going to allocate, I know I typically pay myself $500 a month or $1,000 a month, whatever that number is. I'm going to push that money into my profit account already. So that could be a savings account that you have, that you start with your business. The next step would be, hey, I need to set aside a little bit of money for taxes. So you figure out what's that percentage I want to start to allocate today for taxes. Because again, we don't want that surprise bill at the end of the year once we really start to see success inside the business. And then lastly, we push the money, the rest of that percentage into the operating account. And the goal of this operating account is that every bill flows through there. So that's where your expenses, your invoices, your rent actually gets paid from. What I'll say, the benefit to doing this way, especially starting out, is the fact is, what I'm not saying is write yourself a check today for $500 or $1,000 and take that out of your business account. Because we don't, chances are at the end of the month, we're going to run into it and we're going to need more money back into our business to pay our bills for now. But now you have that money sitting into an account that's named and put aside for your profit account. So now you got to think about, when I get to the end of the month, do I either need to decrease my expenses or do I need to steal from my profit account into my operating account? And you start to save in taxes as well. So that the idea is that money is still there and ready, available to use. But over time, more and more, you start to get into the habit of, hey, what's in my operating account is what I have to work with to pay the bills for my business. And the way you can do that is by knowing and forecasting out and understanding your numbers better. Any thoughts or questions on this part?
Yes. So
Okay.
I just opened a bank account for my LLC, and so I'm just starting from scratch here. It doesn't have any money in it yet. Do you have any particular recommendations based on this for me?
Yeah, so I still recommend, even for startups that are just getting off the ground, to have these separate accounts. And what I'd say, in the beginning, I would be okay if your revenue account here is going to be the same thing as your operating account over here, if that's one and the same, as long as you promise me before you pay your bills, you're moving money into taxes, into profit, just to get into the habit of it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's very helpful.
Thank you. All right. What I'll say is, kind of to cap this off, is the goal of coming up with those allocations that we talked. So looking at over the past year, here's my percentages, and then here's the target. Ultimately, come up with those percentages. The goal isn't today to go from 5% profit that you're paying yourself to 50. The goal is, can I next quarter move that up to 7%, right? And then the next quarter move that up to 9% and then 11%, and take the right baby steps, put the right things in place, set the right habits, and start to really hold yourself accountable to, here's what I have to pay for expenses. So the goal of that is, in a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, you can look back and say, this business actually generated wealth for me and my family throughout the time I was able to pay myself, and I was able to create the impact and do what I love inside my business as well. So I'll tap it off with a couple quotes that I love. So I've heard the saying so many times, knowledge is power. It's not. That's wrong, 100% wrong. Knowledge is freedom. It gives you options. Action is power. So the stuff that we took today, hey, maybe not Not everyone wants to apply that to your business. Try to take a few principles and put that into practice, because the action is what actually makes the difference. And I always try to share this last piece. This changed my total perspective on the way not only I did business, but how we interacted with our clients, our customers, our community, the people around us, and how we worked inside those businesses. Is that regardless of what industry you're in, what you do, people don't buy products or services. They buy better versions of themselves. Whether you're a restaurant and you're providing a healthy meal, or a place to go and enjoy, family time, or a date night, whether you're a counselor that's helping people get what they want out of life, right? People aren't buying you for the products that you sell or the services that you sell. They're buying it because they see person B, they're person A today, and person B in your service or product is the way that they're going to get there. So just that final thought. Any questions?
We had a comment in the chat from Eric. He had said, let me pull it up. My business is unique and it is ran by ticket sales, so it's hard to get paid first. Do you have any sort of advice for how this sort of structure may sort of navigate that to get paid first?
Yeah, absolutely. So you brought up a good point, especially in ticket sales, revenue, and especially those businesses that are either seasonal or they're kind of all over the place from a revenue perspective. Typically, we try to break that down, start the habit quarterly if you can. So if let's say you're doing an event each quarter, the money comes in from the ticket sales. What are we doing with it now? Are we setting aside some profit for later on to make it through the next couple months, right? So if you have to break it down and just practice this quarter by quarter, that's a way to start. Ultimate goal is month to month. And really it comes back to, as money comes into that revenue account, what are we doing with it, right? There's expenses that need to be paid, of course, but every time revenue comes in, are we setting aside that profit for our business? And the only way we can do that is if we're really confident in what we can do in the future and understand what those expenses are actually. So good question.
I have a question.
Thank you on
So,
that.
I'm sorry. So for mine, I also deal with insurances. So in order to set aside money for, to pay myself, should I just kind of do it a month to month? Because you have to bill first, and then it's going to take about 2 to 3 weeks for that to come back in. Or should I go to a quarter?
Yeah,
because
so
it's going to always differ.
Great question. So the goal is ultimately, we get ahead of our expenses and our revenue, but to start out. So for example, we've got an organization, they have to bill the state, and then they have to, the state the state will pay, right? The question is when, or, when and how long will that take and how much work will it be? So really we're all basing it down. We bring that model into, when do I get paid, right? So when the government writes that check and they get it in their bank account, that's when we start. So I would say the goal is the next time you get paid from insurance, let's follow that process of, can we put even 2% aside and then use the rest, in my operating account, a little bit for taxes. And then the next time my insurance gets paid. So it may not be the expenses that are directly associated with that case, right? Because you're getting the revenue months later. But at the same time, it's all about, when does that revenue come in, and then what are we doing with that money?
Okay.
Good question. All right, Aaron, I think that's all we have.
Awesome. Great. Definitely really appreciate your time and chatting with us about this. I feel like we were able to get some really great insights. We will be posting this recording later on today as well. So if you did miss anything or wanted to pull something back, please feel free to check out that recording. Also, we will be posting our discussion a little bit later today as well in the Facebook group. So please, if you haven't replied to the last discussion, please do that. And then be looking out for the next discussion to be posted as well. There are still just a few last deliverables as far as the financial foundation piece goes. And those will be due on the 9th, I believe the date is, because in the next few days in order to get the first round of funding. So please also do that as well. And the last thing I'll say before I let everyone go is if you, again, haven't met with your mentor, if you haven't had any sort of communication, please reach out to me. We'll make sure to get you all connected. And any other questions as far as programming as well, please reach out so we can make sure that we are continuing all on the right page. Other than that, Andre, do you have anything else to say before we close out?
I'll just jump in. Michael pointed out in an email that the DUNS number can be a little confusing. But if you go to the Dean Bradsheet website, you can ask them and they will email it to you. So if anyone's having trouble with that, please reach out or go to that website, and hopefully you can get that as quickly as possible.
Great. And if that's all, we'll end out this meeting for today, and we will see you next time.